The Typhoon Co May has made a landfall around the coast of Zhejiang Island in Zhoushan, Zhejiang Province and around 4:30 a.m. today. And the storm center had maximum sustained winds of around 80 kilometers an hour.
天呐天呐天呐天呐，好惨哦！天呐天呐天呐天呐！哦！
4:30 a.m., July 30th, 2025, Zhejiang Island, Zhoushan. The ocean is angry. Typhoon Co May, the eighth storm of what's already being called China's most devastating typhoon season, makes its first landfall with surgical precision on this tiny island in Zhejiang Province. What nobody saw coming was that this wasn't just one landfall. It was the opening act of a meteorological nightmare that would hit the same region twice in 12 hours, shattering records and rewriting the playbook on how typhoons behave in the 21st century. Welcome to Earth's Dark Secrets. I'm about to show you how a storm that shouldn't have been catastrophic became China's most unpredictable natural disaster of 2025. While officially classified as just a tropical storm, Co May arrived with a deceptive fury that caught even seasoned meteorologists off guard. Zhejiang Island, home to 140,000 residents, took the first punch at exactly 4:30 a.m. local time. Maximum wind speeds reached 23 meters per second. That's 83 kilometers per hour. But the real weapon wasn't wind speed, it was precision. Co May didn't just hit land randomly, it targeted China's most economically critical corridor, the Yangtze River Delta, where Shanghai, Zhejiang, and Jiangsu provinces form the industrial heart of the world's second-largest economy. The numbers are staggering here. Over 282,000 people were forced to evacuate their homes in what became the largest storm displacement in eastern China since 2019.
China's Shanghai, who have been relocated as the tropical storm Co May brings heavy rain and strong winds to the country's eastern coast. Shanghai and surrounding areas are bracing for impact. Now, according to China's state broadcaster, since Tuesday night, over 280,000 people have been moved to safety across Shanghai. The mass evacuation comes ahead of tropical storm Co May, which made its first landfall early Wednesday in Zhoushan.
But think about it for a second. Evacuating 282,000 people isn't just about moving bodies. You have to shut down entire economic systems. Shanghai Pudong Airport, one of the world's busiest cargo hubs, canceled over 400 flights. Hongqiao Airport added another 230 cancellations. That's 630 flights carrying everything from medical supplies to semiconductor components grounded in a single day. The global supply chains that depend on just-in-time delivery from Chinese manufacturing suddenly face delays measured in weeks, not days. Now, this is where the story gets terrifying. At around 4:40 p.m. that same evening, Co May made a second landfall between Shanghai's Fengxian district and southern Pudong New area. This wasn't supposed to happen. Typhoons don't typically make double landfalls on the same coastline within 12 hours. The meteorological conditions required for such an event are so rare that China's weather forecasting models had no historical precedent to work with. The first strike hit Zhejiang Island with focused intensity, but the second landfall targeted Shanghai itself, a city of 24 million people, completely unprepared for a storm that had already supposedly passed through the region. Just think about the psychology of this disaster. Residents who had already weathered one tropical storm suddenly found themselves facing round two of what was rapidly becoming a meteorological siege. Of course, the infrastructure strain was immediate and catastrophic. Shanghai's legendary flood defense system, engineered to handle century-level storm surges, was stress-tested twice in 12 hours. The Huangpu River, which normally handles storm drainage with engineered precision, became a bottleneck as Co May's second wave of rainfall overwhelmed urban drainage systems that had already been pushed to capacity. But Co May wasn't acting alone. As Co May was pummeling eastern China, Typhoon Francisco, the season's seventh storm, was spinning just 1,300 kilometers away in the South China Sea. What happened next was something meteorologists call the Fujiwara effect. This is a phenomenon where two tropical cyclones within 1,000 to 1,500 kilometers begin to interact, causing mutual rotation or even merging. Imagine two massive weather machines, each hundreds of kilometers across, beginning to orbit each other like binary stars. The gravitational pull between these storm systems created atmospheric chaos that made Co May's behavior completely unpredictable. This is why the double landfall caught everyone off guard. Co May wasn't following normal typhoon physics because it was being influenced by Francisco's massive atmospheric presence 1,000 kilometers away. The Fujiwara effect turned what should have been a straightforward tropical storm into a meteorological wildcard that rewrote the rules of typhoon forecasting in real time. Co May brought record rainfall to both Zhejiang and Shanghai, with some areas receiving more precipitation in 24 hours than they typically see in an entire month. However, the real devastation wasn't just from the quantity of rain, it was from the timing. The double landfall meant that areas already saturated from the first strike had no time to drain before the second wave hit. In Shenyang, Shanghai, rainfall totals reached 52.9 millimeters in areas where drainage systems were already at capacity. Urban flooding in modern Shanghai means subway systems that move 11 million passengers daily suddenly becoming underground rivers. Server farms that power China's digital economy sit in basements that weren't designed for consecutive flood events. The cascading failures were immediate and bad. Power grids designed to handle one storm event faced two. Telecommunications infrastructure that relies on underground cables found those cables submerged twice in 12 hours. Zhejiang provincial authorities elevated their emergency response from level 4 to level 3, but the real emergency was economic. The Yangtze River Delta produces 25% of China's GDP. When you shut down this region for 48 hours due to consecutive typhoon strikes, you're not just affecting China, you're disrupting global manufacturing chains that depend on Chinese components. Electronics manufacturing in Zhejiang supplies components for everything from smartphones to electric vehicles. The storm affected Shanghai, Zhejiang, Jiangsu, Anhui, and Shandong, 5 provinces that collectively represent the manufacturing backbone of global consumer electronics. Semiconductor fabs in Shanghai that require 24/7 stable power found themselves dealing with grid instabilities that could destroy months of production in minutes. Pharmaceutical companies in Zhejiang that supply global markets faced production shutdowns that would create medicine shortages worldwide. Sadly, at least one person was killed and 4 others were injured in the direct impact from Co May. Numbers that seem almost impossibly low for a disaster of this scale. But those statistics and numbers don't really capture the real human cost. 282,000 people evacuated means 282,000 people who lost their routine, their sense of security, their economic stability for weeks or months. It means small business owners who watched floodwaters destroy inventory they couldn't afford to replace. It means elderly residents in care facilities who had to be moved twice in 12 hours as the storm struck again. The psychological impact of a double-strike typhoon is something disaster psychology has never had to address before. How do you recover from a storm that hits you, lets you start picking up the pieces, then hits you again 12 hours later? What makes Co May genuinely terrifying is that it represents a new category of climate behavior that our infrastructure and emergency systems aren't designed to handle. The double landfall phenomenon, combined with the Fujiwara effect interaction with Francisco, suggests that we're entering an era where typhoons don't follow historical patterns. They're becoming more complex, more unpredictable, and more capable of overwhelming systems designed for normal storm behavior. When two typhoons can influence each other's behavior across 1,300 kilometers of ocean, we're dealing with atmospheric dynamics on a scale that makes individual storm preparation inadequate. China's eastern seaboard, home to over 400 million people, is now facing the reality that traditional typhoon defenses may be obsolete in an era of multi-storm interactions and double-strike events. Co May ended its assault on eastern China on July 31st, but its impact continues to ripple through global systems. Supply chains are still recovering. Infrastructure damaged by the double strike will take months to fully repair. over 282,000 people displaced by a storm that lasted just 24 hours are discovering that recovery from unprecedented disasters takes far longer than recovery from predictable ones. The residents of Zhejiang Island, Shanghai, and Zhejiang Province learned something that the rest of the world will soon understand. In the age of climate change, nature doesn't play by the old rules. Storms can hit twice. Weather systems can dance with each other across vast distances. And the infrastructure we've built to protect ourselves may not be enough for the new reality we're facing. Co May wasn't just the 8th typhoon of 2025. It was a preview of what disasters look like when the climate system itself becomes unpredictable. The next double strike typhoon is already forming somewhere in the Pacific. The question isn't whether it will happen again. The question is whether we'll be ready for it. Thanks for watching Earth's Dark Secrets, where we expose the hidden forces reshaping our planet's most dangerous weather. If you found this investigation revealing, please like, comment, and subscribe. Your support helps us uncover the stories authorities don't want told. Hit the bell so you never miss our in-depth analysis of the disasters that reveal our planet's dark truths.